Hello and welcome once again to the video. Continuing my series looking at every Grand Prix in the 2025 Formula One World Championship, as I have done with previous years. Just from a fan's perspective, nothing too technical. And I don't, review the Grand Prix step by step. I just talk about things within the race as if I was just chatting to someone about the race, basically, rather than doing a full organised commentary rundown sort of thing. My usual routine, of course, is to list down the finishing order down here, and then the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and then the top 10 in the Constructors' Championship. So let's dive in with round 10 already. Canada. At the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which used to be called the Circuit. Was it the Circuit Circuit d'Île Notre Dame, wasn't it? Île being island. So it's the Circuit of the Island of Notre Dame in English. Is what it used to be called prior to 1982, when it was renamed Circuit Gilles Villeneuve after Gilles Villeneuve's death. I love the circuit. I think it's fantastic, and it hasn't changed. I've been watching races at that circuit for so long, and I can't think of any changes. There must have been subtle little changes over the years, but I can't really think of anything. Right, so let's start at the top, shall we? So, number 1. Russell. Now let's make sure that is in focus. Very important. 2. Verstappen. Third place was Antonelli. 4th, Piastri. 5th, Leclerc. And his usual spot, Hamilton in 6th. 7th. Alonso, Hulkenberg. Ocon, Sainz. Bearman. Tsunoda. Colapinto. Bortoleto. Gasly. Hadjar. Hadjar, not Hadjar, as David Croft calls him. Hadjar. It's not Hadjar, it's Hadjar. 17, Stroll. 18, Norris. 19, Lawson. 20, Albon. Okay, so let's do the top 10 in the championship. Piastri 198. Norris 176. for. Hamilton, 79. Antonelli on 63. We are still in focus, aren't we? I think we are, yeah. Albon. 42. Ocon 22. Hadjar 21. Okay. Let's just tap the focus. Okay. So, the Constructors' Championship, we have McLaren 374. Mercedes 199. Ferrari 183. Red Bull 162. Williams 55. Haas 28. Racing Bull 28 as well. Aston Martin. Sauber 20. Alpine 11. Okay, so what did we think of that race? Well, for starters, I thought that was a fantastic race. Really enjoyable. Really enjoyable up until 2 laps in the end, I guess. Mainly because the racing just stopped then because of the safety car. Not because of sour grapes on my part. It's just because basically the race stopped two laps before the end. So let's just put down the wins. So McLaren have had 7, Mercedes 1, Red Bull 2, Piastri has had 5 wins, Norris 2, Verstappen 2, Russell 1. Fastest lap was Russell. Okay, so I wrote hardly any notes down at all because normally I've got about 10 different things written down, or a dozen different things written down, but I've only got like 2, I think, this time, because I was just enjoying the race so much, and there wasn't a lot really happening until the end. There wasn't really much going on, but it was just so exciting watching the cars. There wasn't really even a lot of, if any, overtaking between the top runners, but it was just exciting watching them cut through traffic and the different pit strategies. That was exciting. I found it a really enjoyable race, even though there were not really any highlights until the end. So let's jump in straight in there. The Norris Piastri thing. For starters, absolutely 100% Norris's fault. What on earth was he doing? He went for a gap that wasn't there. It wasn't even a gap that was closed. It's been compared to that terrible accident between Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button in 2011. There's a big difference. It was exactly the same part of the circuit between the 2 McLaren drivers, with someone trying to overtake up the inside of the wall and being clipped by the guy in front, who went on to finish the race, in Button's case, win the race. So it's very similar in many ways, but the big difference is that when Lewis went for the gap in 2011, there was actually a gap. when he went to overtake Button, there was a genuine gap, but then Button maintained afterwards that he didn't realise that Hamilton was going to go for it, and he moved out. He moved across. But see, why would he move across? Because that wouldn't be the racing line. The racing line would have been to have stayed on the other side of the track, the right-hand side of the track from his perspective, to then swoop into the first corner. So I never believed that Button didn't know Hamilton was there. I think Button moved across to block Hamilton, not realising that Hamilton was already partly alongside, and then it just shoved Hamilton onto the grass and off he went. So I put the blame firmly on Button for that, so I was not pleased when Button won that race. Surprisingly, when it was, I'm English, Button is English, he was brought up only 100 miles away from where I live, and it was a great, stirring race victory by Button, overtaking Vettel when Vettel went off on the last lap. All very exciting stuff, but I was irritated because of what had happened with Lewis Hamilton. Because in my view, that was totally Button's fault. However, here, with this race, there was no gap, so it was totally Norris's fault. Piastri didn't even move across the track. He might have moved ever so slightly, gradually, as he was driving along the straight, but there was no sudden move by Piastri at all. It's very odd. When I saw it happened very quick, but in my mind it seemed to be quite slow motion, because I remember having time to think, what on earth is he going? There's no gap there. Oh, there he is. He's had an accident. I don't know how I managed to fit all those that thought in a split second that it happened, but I do remember thinking, what is he doing? There's no gap there. And then they touch. I can't believe that Piastri didn't retire. It's good that he didn't, because it wasn't his fault at all. It's very, very frustrating that Norris did that. And it's, in my view, this race is a microcosm. Is that the right word? I think so. A microcosm for the whole championship so far. It sums up the championship between Piastri and Norris. Norris, super quick, but super prone to mistakes. Piastri, slower than Norris, but not prone to mistakes, or less mistakes anyway. Piastri kept it well under control. He was under so much pressure from Norris for about 5 laps. Didn't make any mistakes. And then Norris goes and makes a big one. And Norris super fast. Norris came out of his pits. He was virtually the last to stop of the leaders anyway. He came from 7th on the grid. Piastri started 3rd. He came out from his last pit stop about 9 seconds behind Piastri, and he just closed and closed and closed. He only had tyres that were one or two laps fresher than Piastri. But that's all. I think it was only 1 lap, maybe 2, but I think it's only 1. Fresher than Piastri's tyres. And he closed him down mercilessly, basically. And yes, Piastri was getting stuck in traffic, but he was closing on Piastri before Piastri ever got to any traffic. The traffic just made it worse. And Norris was so much quicker. And then he threw it up the inside of the notorious turn 10. I call it the notorious turn 10 because that's where I still have nightmares to this day, where Nigel Mansell waved to the crowd on the last lap of the Canadian Grand Prix with a minute's lead over Nelson Piquet, Max Verstappen's sort of future father-in-law. And Nelson Piquet in his Benetton, which is now the Alpine, was a minute behind Mansell in his Williams. Mansell was about to win the race, with the first 4 races of the season all being won by Senna in his McLaren. But here was Mansell at long last going to win, but start a challenge towards Senna. And his car suddenly stopped, and it stopped as he was going round turn 10. with just the straight to go, the straight and a chicane to go before the finishing line at the end of the race, and Mansell's car turned off. The jury is still out as to whether or not Mansell accidentally turned the car off when he was waving to the crowd. I don't know how possible it is to do that, but the car did restart when it got back to the pits. The Williams team were able to restart the car. So anyway, yeah, that's why I call it the notorious turn 10. And Norris threw it up the inside, fantastic, but of course outbraked himself. Piastri gets back, and they're side by side. That's fantastic, side by side racing down the straight. And then Norris, I suppose he had to back out because he was on the outside. Piastri could play chicken for longer going towards that final chicane. It just looked like Norris was a bit aggressive in his backing out. Basically, he seemed to slam the brakes on, but I suppose he had to. He hung it in there as long as possible, and then he had to slam the brakes on because he was on the outside. But then it looked like he was going to get him into turn 1. But again, as often happens with Norris, he chose the wrong side. This time, normally he chooses the wrong side by going around the outside. Norris's main problem is he's always trying to overtake people from the outside. And especially when it's Max, all Max has to do is do a slight little movement. And he can sort of like push Norris wide if Norris is trying to overtake him around the outside. So that's normally Norris's problem. Keeps trying to overtake people around the outside. But this time, I suppose it was still on the straight, so you couldn't really say it was the inside or the outside because it was on the straight. But it was on the side that would be the inside by the time they got to the first corner. And I think Piastri thought that he was going to go that way, which is why Piastri positioned himself covering that left-hand side, which is perfectly fine. He didn't, no aggressive manoeuvres by Piastri or anything. Oscar, as Zach Brown would call him. Landau and Oscar. He's got two great drivers in Landau and Oscar. Anyway, yeah, so Oscar, nothing wrong, didn't do anything wrong at all. And yeah, it's just a very strange manoeuvre by Landau. Totally unnecessary, because he would have got past Piastri eventually. He was so much quicker. But it encapsulates the whole season, basically. Norris is quicker than Piastri. He has been for the 2.5 years that they've been together. He's been consistently quicker than Piastri. But this year, and to a certain extent last year, but mostly this year, he's been making mistakes. Plus, Piastri is better. So Piastri this year is closer to Norris in speed, but he is still slower than Norris. Of that, there is no doubt. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had this coming together. So, oh dear. And of course, Norris would have got past had Piastri not had DRS from Antonelli in front of him. And Antonelli, he had been closer to Antonelli. Oscar had been earlier, but he had, as soon as Landau started threatening Oscar, he dropped back from Antonelli. So he didn't have the DRS. And as the McLaren, as Landau's race engineer said, this is the time to attack Oscar right now. Whilst he doesn't have DRS. But he just couldn't put in a good attack. He was only able to get in an attack in the end. Once Piastri was in the DRS of Antonelli, because yes, he was in the DRS, but he was also in the dirty air, which was allowing Norris, I think, maybe to attack. But of course, that DRS helped Piastri stay clear of Norris as they were going down the long straight. Absolute disaster, because now the gap is 22 points. So, totally self-inflicted. Of course, Norris is doing his normal Mr. Nice Guy routine by totally 100% blaming himself, and he should, but again, he's going too far. He's attacking himself too much. Even Piastri said after the race, well, yeah, he apologised, but I haven't even seen the race yet. But I guess I haven't even seen the accident, so I'm guessing it's his fault because he keeps apologising for it. So yeah, well done, well done, Lando, for taking the blame. But don't keep doing it. Don't keep going. All I can see on the headlines at the moment today is how much Lando is attacking himself and calling himself stupid and all this sort of thing. Take blame for the accident. Don't call yourself stupid, or don't say it was a stupid move. Just say, yes, it was my fault. I'm sorry. Move on. So Hamilton, I have a vested interest in two drivers all the time, Hamilton and Norris. And Hamilton had another bad day because he hit a groundhog. Now, that's always a problem in Canada, groundhogs. And I saw a groundhog at one point. I forget what part. I think it was on the way down to turn 10. And there was a groundhog on the right-hand side. At first, I thought it was a big leaf or a branch or something. But then I could see that it was indeed. Well, it was either a groundhog or a platypus. So I'm assuming of the two, it was probably a groundhog. And yeah, I saw that. I wonder if it's the same one that Hamilton hit on lap 30. No, it wouldn't be. No, because this was later than that, lap 13 that I saw the groundhog. It wouldn't be the same one unless it was a particularly tough and mean groundhog. So there wouldn't be much left of the groundhog that Hamilton hit on lap 13. But that's often a problem. Didn't Anthony Davidson hit a groundhog when it looked like he was heading for a podium? Anthony Davidson, his teammate Takuma Sato. Anthony Davidson looked like he was heading for a podium because he was ahead of Takuma Sato, if indeed Sato was his teammate. But he hit a groundhog. So yeah, unfortunately another standard 6th place for Hamilton, maintaining his standard 6th place in the championship, the same as every championship since 2021, basically. Oh dear. It's annoying because I want to get a more expensive Barago Hamilton Ferrari model next year. I wanted to get the bigger model with Hamilton, the Hamilton figure standing outside with his arms aloft, but it's going to be less appealing if all he can pick up is the odd 6th place. Can't even get on the podium. I don't think I'm going to splash out for that. What else? Of course, Russell. I have to mention Russell. I mean, George Russell is English. I think he's English, isn't he? He's not Scottish or Welsh or Irish, I think. No, I'm pretty sure he's English. British, anyway. Yeah, so I'm English. So I'm still happy that Russell's picked up a win from a purely patriotic point of view. But from a championship point of view, I'm sort of devastated after that race because of Norris's silly mistake. Great performance again by Max. I know people talk about how rubbish the Red Bull is. I don't think the Red Bull was rubbish at all. I think Max's Red Bull is very good. The problem is it's been tailored for him, and that's understandable. It's very sort of pointy front end, lots of oversteer. And the car is, I know they can set up their cars separately, the teammates, but the actual basic design of the car has been tweaked and twerked for Max, turning it into a Max Bull. And that's understandable. I mean, why wouldn't you build your car around Max Verstappen? Of course you would. But it just means that his teammate is just nowhere. And what are they going to do next? Put Hadjar in there? I mean, obviously they shouldn't, because they might end up destroying Hadjar. They put these drivers, these very confident, very good drivers, they bring them up from the junior team, put them in the Red Bull, destroy them, and then throw them in the bin. Let's not do that to Hadjar. Let's not wreck Hadjar and then chuck him in the bin. Because look at Lawson. He was fantastic in the Racing Bull last year when he took over from Ricciardo. He was great. And then just 2 races at Red Bull. Now he goes back into the Racing Bull, and I think he put in a good performance at Monaco, but apart from that, he's just nowhere near Hadjar. He started from the pit lane in this race, didn't he? So that would have not helped. I can't really remember much of that happened with the drivers below 6th place Hamilton. Obviously, Alonso put in a good performance. Hulkenberg, of course, put in a very good performance. Although strangely, most of the time, you would see Hulkenberg being overtaken by the leaders because he stayed out on his mediums. I think he stayed out on his mediums for a very long period of time, or hards or whatever. But he stayed out for a long time before he had his first pit stop. And because of that, he was constantly getting overtaken by the leaders, of course. But it made it look like he was last. But he wasn't. 8th place. Extremely good. Sainz managed to pick up a point. Albon, he's so fiery in the car, isn't he? He fires out lots of punchy, aggressive comments in the car. Not swearing, but very forthright, punchy, aggressive comments. Out of the car, he's a pussycat. And don't tell me that he's a pussycat to the media, but behind closed doors, he's tearing into the Williams team. No, he isn't. You can tell he's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. He's a pussycat outside the car, full stop. Inside the car, though, he definitely says what he wants to say. And I think he was annoyed that they'd kept him out for so longer than would be ideal for a 2-stopper. But then they tried to get him to come into the pits earlier than what would be ideal for a 1-stopper. So he's sort of in between the two. So when they were trying to get him to stop, it was no good for a 2-stopper and no good for a 1-stopper. So I think that's why he was angry. But he retired in the end anyway. Bearman's not having a great season, it has to be said. Ocon's not doing too bad though. Another 9th place. It was a strong performance by Ocon. Leclerc, well, he did 2 stints on the hards. He thought he could do a 1-stop. That's impossible because he started on hards like Norris did, and it would have meant him doing about 35 laps or something on the mediums if he'd done a 1-stopper. So it wouldn't have worked. But at the time in the car, he was a bit irritated that he wasn't allowed to do a 1-stopper. Okay, so what else? Mercedes back up to second place where they were before in the championship. Hamilton. Of course, a great 3rd place by Antonelli. I have to mention that, of course. People are going overboard about his age, though. I mean, when you consider that Antonelli is older than Max Verstappen was when Max Verstappen won his first Grand Prix. I'm sure, because he's nearly 19. Antonelli's nearly 19, right? He's about, 100 days away from turning 19, something like that. I'm sure Verstappen was younger. He was 18 and something when he won his first Grand Prix. And I don't remember anybody singing and dancing about how Verstappen is just a babe out of a pram. And everyone thinks he's a little lost child. And I don't remember all those sort of comments, but that's what you're getting all the time with Antonelli. Everyone's going, oh, Antonelli, oh, look at him, he's a little sweetie, he's a little cutie pie. And he's not, he's a professional racing driver. He's a Formula 1 driver. He's young, yes, but he's not a cutie little popsicle face. He's just the latest young driver, you know. Tsunoda was very young when he came into F1. Norris was only 20 when he came in. As I say, Verstappen was, how old was he? He was about 8 or something, wasn't he? And, he came in 2015, so he would have been 18. So, yeah. So when he won his first race, he would have been 18, coming on 19. And Antonelli's 18, coming on 19 with his first podium. So not as good as Verstappen. So I certainly am not going to patronise Antonelli. if ever I meet Antonelli, I will not patronise him and say, "Oh, hello, young man. Where's your grandfather, Kimi Antonelli?" No, I'm Kimi Antonelli. I'm not gonna patronise him like that, because he's just a young driver. That's all. Let's stop banging on about how, how does he manage to go an hour and 40 minutes without having his nappy changed in the cockpit. Let's stop all that kind of talk. He's a professional racing driver that has built his way up through the ranks, but he just started very young, and he's very good, and so therefore he's got to Formula One sooner, a couple of years before others do, but no more than that. Hamilton was, well, he was quite old actually. He was 22 when he started. It's a bad example. But there you go. So let's stop banging on about Antonelli and how cutie pie, what a cutie pie he is, and how young he is, and all that nonsense. Still a good performance though, 3rd place, but it's a good car. The Mercedes has been a good car this year, and it's a particularly good car here in Canada. So why wouldn't he be in 3rd place? So yeah, it's good that he's got his first podium. Celebrate the fact that it's his first podium, but let's not act surprised. Let's not act shocked and amazed and enthralled by his podium. Piastri 4th place here, first time off the podium. 8 podiums on the trot he did. Norris nearly did 9 on the trot, but he came 4th in one of his Grand Prix. I think Azerbaijan, wasn't it? Or was it Saudi Arabia? Hamilton holds the record for the most number of podiums on the trot at McLaren. That's 9. And he did that in his first 9 races, not just at McLaren, but his first 9 races in Formula One. Hamilton's first 9 races were all on the podium. Incredible. It was a good car though, but still incredible, including 2 wins. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. There's probably something I haven't said that I wanted to say, but the most important thing for me to do in this particular video was to make sure I didn't forget to do my Zach Brown impersonation. So well done, Landu and Oscar. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so, or like the video, or comment on my impression, and or leave a tip on the thanks button below the video. And I will see you on the very next video, hopefully. Thank you, and goodbye for now.